Singer sees humble boy playing old guitar and does something that changes his life. Michael Bennett's life was in ruins after doctors confirmed he had lost 40% of his vocal capacity due to a problem with his vocal cords. His national tour had been cancelled the night before, and his record label was already talking about terminating his contract. That's when he heard that melody echoing through the cold corridors of Times Square subway station in New York City. The crystal-clear voice of a child was singing a song he recognized immediately, even though it had never been officially recorded. "Wow, what a beautiful voice," murmured an older woman who had also stopped to listen. Michael pulled his cap down, covering his face better. There sat a boy of about 12 with messy, curly hair, perched on the cold floor with a guitar that had clearly seen better days. The strings were visibly patched up, and the instrument was covered in scratches. But it was the song that left Michael frozen. Paper Dreams was a composition of his from when he was just starting his career, a song he only played at small gigs before he became famous. He had never recorded it because his old manager said it lacked commercial appeal. "Where did you learn this song, kid?" he asked, crouching beside the boy. The boy stopped playing and looked up, startled. His clothes were simple, a t-shirt that was getting too small and jeans with patches on the knees. "My dad used to sing it to me, mister." "Why?" "Your dad? How did he learn this song?" "He used to work in music. Said he met the songwriter back when he wasn't famous yet." Michael's heart raced. Very few people knew that song, and most were technicians and musicians who had worked with him in his early days. "What's your dad's name?" "Raymond Wilson Taylor. But he doesn't work in music anymore. After he lost his job at the studio, he never got another steady job." Michael felt a lump in his throat. Raymond Wilson. He vaguely remembered that name, a dedicated sound technician who had worked on some of his first recordings. What happened to make him lose his job? The boy lowered his head, nervously plucking at the guitar strings. "They said he stole some expensive equipment from the studio. My dad always said it was a lie, but no one believed him. After that, life got really hard at home." "What's your name?" "Tyler. Tyler Wilson Taylor." "And how long have you been playing here in the subway?" "About 2 months. My mom doesn't like it much, but I have to help with money at home. Dad's been kinda down since he lost his last job at the bakery." Michael looked at the open guitar case on the ground. There were a few scattered coins and some small bills. The boy's talent was undeniable, but the circumstances were heartbreaking. "Tyler, I need to talk to your parents. Can I walk you home?" The boy shrank back, suspicious. "Why? You're not a stranger, are you? My mom always says not to talk to strangers." "No, I'm not. Actually, I think I knew your dad a long time ago. My name's Michael." "Michael what?" "There are lots of Michaels around." Michael hesitated. If he revealed who he was right there, it would draw unnecessary attention. "I'll explain more later. Where do you live?" "On the south side, in a boarding house near Queen's Station. But my mom won't like it if I bring a stranger there." Just then, a woman in her 40s came running up the station stairs. She was thin, with brown hair tied in a ponytail and a worried expression. "Tyler, how many times have I told you not to talk to strangers?" she yelled, rushing over. "Mom, relax, he was just asking about—" "I don't care," she interrupted, pulling her son by the arm. You idiot, stay away from my son. If I see you near him again, I'll call security. Ma'am, please, I just want to help. I knew Tyler's father many years ago." "Help? Do you think I was born yesterday? Stay away from us." She quickly packed the guitar into its case, picked up the coins from the ground, and held Tyler's hand tightly. "Mom, he seemed nice." "Shut up, Tyler, we're leaving now." Dear listener, if you're enjoying the story, don't forget to like and especially subscribe to the channel. It really helps those of us just starting out. Now back to the story. Michael stood still, watching mother and son walk away quickly. The woman glanced back now and then, as if he might follow them. He understood her reaction. A single mother protecting her child from a stranger who appeared out of nowhere. But he couldn't just let it go. If Raymond Wilson Taylor was really who he thought he was, and if the man had been wrongly accused of theft, Michael had a moral duty to uncover the truth. That night in his luxurious apartment on the Upper East Side, Michael couldn't sleep, The song Tyler had sung echoed in his mind, but it was the boy's words about his father that troubled him most. Raymond Wilson Taylor. The more he thought about it, the more details came back to him. A middle-aged black man, always meticulous with the equipment, who arrived early and left late from the studio. Michael remembered how Raymond always offered useful technical suggestions and seemed genuinely invested in making the recordings perfect. The next morning, Michael called Richard, his former manager, the one who had handled his career in the early years. "Michael, what a surprise! I heard you cancelled the tour. Health problems." "Richard, I need to ask you something. Do you remember a sound technician named Raymond Wilson who worked at Harmony Studios back in the 2010s? There was a pause on the other end. "Raymond Wilson? I don't quite recall. Why do you want to know?" "He was fired over theft suspicions. Do you remember that case?" "Oh yes, now I remember. That was an ugly situation. The guy stole some expensive equipment and tried to sell it, got fired on the spot." "How can you be so sure it was him?" "Michael, that was over 10 years ago. Why are you digging up old history?" "Just curious. Can you get me the records from back then? Documents, reports, that sort of thing?" "What for?" "Stop being nosy, Richard. Can you do it or not?" "I can, but it'll take a few days. I'll have to ask the archive team to dig through storage." After hanging up, Michael decided he needed to find Tyler and his family again, but this time he'd be more careful. For the next 3 days, he returned to Times Square at the same time he'd first met the boy. The first day, no one was there. The second day, the same. On the third day, he finally saw Tyler sitting in the same spot, playing a different song. This time, Michael didn't approach directly. He watched from a distance, hidden behind a pillar. He wanted to understand the boy's routine better before trying again. Tyler played for about 2 hours. Some people stopped to listen and dropped coins into his case. The boy thanked each one politely, always with a smile, even when people passed by without giving anything. When Tyler started packing up his guitar, Michael followed at a distance. The boy caught a bus heading to the south side, just as he'd said. Michael noted the bus number and decided he'd take the same route the next day. On Thursday, Richard called. "Michael, I got the files you asked for. Can I drop them off at your place tonight?" "Sure." "And Richard, do you remember any other details about the Raymond Wilson Taylor case?" "Honestly, no. It all happened so fast. They discovered the theft, confronted the guy, he denied it, but the evidence was clear. End of story." "What kind of evidence?" "The equipment was found in his house. That's all I remember." When Richard arrived at Michael Bennett's apartment that night, he brought a box full of yellowed papers and disorganized folders. "Here's everything I could find from that time. There are receipts, contracts, incident reports, things like that." Michael spent the entire night going through the documents. Most were administrative paperwork, but eventually he found what he was looking for: the incident report involving Raymond Wilson Taylor. According to the document, 3 expensive microphones and a portable soundboard had gone missing from the studio on a Friday. By the following Monday, the equipment had been found in Raymond's house after an anonymous tip. Raymond claimed he didn't know how the equipment ended up there, but he was fired immediately and the case was reported to the police. What caught Michael's attention was a strange detail. The anonymous tip had been made by phone on Sunday night, but the report stated the equipment wasn't discovered until Monday morning. How could someone have known the equipment was in Raymond's house before it was even found? Michael kept reading and found other suspicious details. The doorman at Raymond's building had stated he hadn't seen any strangers coming or going that weekend. Raymond lived alone with his wife and young son, and they had all been home on Sunday. The more Michael read, the more convinced he became that Raymond had been framed. But who would have wanted to harm an honest, hard-working sound technician? On Friday, Michael returned to Times Square with a different plan. This time, he wouldn't approach Tyler directly. Instead, he asked his journalist friend Emily to make the first contact. "Emily, I need a favor. There's a boy who plays guitar in the subway, and I want to help his family, but his mother doesn't trust me." "Why doesn't she trust you?" "Because she doesn't know me and thinks I'm some shady stranger. Could you approach the family as if you're a journalist doing a story on kids who work to help support their households?" Of course I can. But why do you want to help this family in particular? It's a long story. I'll explain everything later. Emily met Tyler at his usual time and approached him professionally. She said she worked for a magazine and was doing a feature on young musical talents who turned to street performances to support their families. After some hesitation, Tyler agreed to talk. He shared his story with heartbreaking details that moved Emily deeply. The family was struggling financially. His father had been unemployed for months, and his mother worked as a cleaner to pay the rent for the boarding house where they lived. "My dad was really good at what he did," Tyler said. "He knew a lot about sound and music, but after that problem at the studio, no one would hire him again." "What problem?" Tyler told her about the theft accusation. Emily noticed the sadness in his eyes as he spoke about how his father had changed after the incident. "He's really quiet now. Sometimes he drinks a few beers and just stares into space. I don't think he's ever gotten over what happened." Emily got the family's address and arranged to visit them over the weekend to continue the interview. When she called Michael to report the conversation, he was even more determined to help. "Emily, I'm almost certain that Boy's father was framed. I'm reviewing the documents and there's a lot that doesn't add up in this story." "What kind of things?" "The timeline of events doesn't match. Besides, I remember Raymond. He was an honest man. It makes no sense for him to steal equipment." "And what do you plan to do?" "First, I need to talk to him in person. Can you arrange that?" "I can try. But if your suspicion is right and he really was wronged, I imagine he must be deeply hurt by the music industry." On Saturday, Emily visited the family at the boarding house where they lived. The place was simple but clean, a small room with a double bed, a bunk bed, and few pieces of furniture. Tyler's mother, Jennifer, was welcoming when Emily explained about the article. Raymond was sitting on a plastic chair in the small courtyard of the boarding house, fixing an old radio. When Emily introduced herself and explained the reason for her visit, he visibly tensed. "I don't like talking about music much," he said, not looking up from the radio. "Why not?" "Music brought me more trouble than joy." Jennifer intervened. "Raymond, the young lady just wants to write a piece about Tyler. It wouldn't hurt to talk." "Mr. Wilson Taylor," Emily said. "Tyler told me you knew many famous musicians when you worked at the studio." Raymond finally raised his head. His eyes held a deep sadness, as if carrying the weight of an injustice never set right. "I did. I worked with people who later became very famous, but that was a long time ago." "Do you remember a singer named Michael Bennett?" Raymond stopped tinkering with the radio and stared at Emily. "Why do you want to know about him?" "Just curiosity. Tyler said you taught him some songs you learned back then." "Michael Bennett," Raymond murmured, returning to the radio. "That name brings back bad memories." "Why?" "Because working for him is what ruined my life." Jennifer stepped closer and placed a hand on her husband's shoulder. "Raymond, don't dwell on these things. It's in the past." "It's not in the past, Jennifer. It'll never be in the past. I spent 30 years of my life working honestly, and then, because of a false accusation, I lost everything." Emily sensed she was reaching the heart of the conversation. "Do you want to talk about what happened?" Raymond was silent for a moment, as if deciding whether to share his side of the story. "There's no point. No one would believe me anyway." "I believe you," said Tyler, who had arrived home and overheard part of the conversation. "Dad, you never stole from anyone." Raymond looked at his son with a mix of pride and sorrow. "Thank you for believing in me, son. That means a lot." Emily spent the next 2 hours listening to Raymond's account of that fateful Friday. He remembered every detail, as if he had relived that day hundreds of times in his mind. "I was working as usual. It was a Friday, and we were wrapping up some recordings. When I left the studio around 6 in the evening, everything was normal. Over the weekend, we stayed home, didn't go anywhere. And on Monday, 2 officers showed up at my house at 7 in the morning. They said they'd received a tip that I had stolen equipment from the studio. I didn't understand anything. They searched the house and found the equipment in my bedroom closet. You had no idea how it got there?" "None. To this day, I don't know. All I know is someone planted those things in my home to frame me." "Do you suspect anyone?" Raymond hesitated before answering. I always had my doubts about Richard, Michael's manager. He never liked me because I always questioned shady things I saw happening behind the scenes. What kind of things? Financial irregularities. Contracts that didn't match the actual payments. Things an honest manager would never do. Emily felt a chill. The puzzle piece was falling into place. Did you ever report these irregularities to anyone? I was planning to. In fact, on the Friday before the robbery, I discovered some discrepancies in the financial reports that really worried me. I was going to talk to Michael about it on Monday. And you got fired before that could happen. Exactly. When Emily relayed the conversation to Michael, he was furious. His suspicions about Richard were being confirmed. Emily, can you arrange a meeting with Raymond without him knowing it's me? I need to speak with him in person. I can try, but how? Tell him you know someone who can help with his case, someone with access to information that could prove his innocence. And do you really have that information? I'm gathering it, and if my suspicions are right, Richard will have to answer for a lot. Dear listener, if you're enjoying the story, please take a moment to like and subscribe to the channel. It really helps us newcomers. Now back to the story. The following Tuesday, Emily managed to convince Raymond to meet with a source who might have important information about his case. They arranged to meet at a diner in the city center. When Raymond arrived and saw Michael sitting at a back table, his reaction was total shock. "What's he doing here?" he asked Emily. "Raymond, please sit down. Michael has important things to tell you." "I have nothing to say to him." Raymond started to turn away, but Michael quickly stood up. "Raymond, please. I know you were framed. I have proof." Raymond stopped but didn't turn around. "What proof?" "Documents showing the timeline doesn't add up, and other evidence pointing to who really set you up." Raymond finally turned. His face showed a mix of hope and skepticism. "And why do you care now? It's been over 10 years. "Because I found your son playing in the subway, and because I discovered you were hurt by something I could have prevented if I'd paid more attention to what was happening around me." Raymond stepped closer to the table, but didn't sit. "My son has nothing to do with this." "He does. He's paying for the consequences of an injustice done to you, an injustice that ruined your career and destroyed your reputation. And what do you plan to do now? It's been too long." "I plan to prove your innocence and hold the real culprit accountable." Raymond finally sat, but remained guarded. "How?" "First, tell me everything you remember about Richard back then, especially the financial irregularities you discovered." Raymond took a deep breath before speaking. "Richard was skimming money from contracts. He reported lower amounts than the actual payments and pocketed the difference. I found out because I always checked the financial reports from the studios we worked with. Do you have proof?" "I had some notes, but I lost everything when I was fired. Richard gave me 2 hours to empty my locker and leave the studio." "And you never tried to prove your innocence after that?" "I tried. I hired a lawyer, tracked down witnesses, but no one wanted to get involved. Richard was too powerful, and I was just a sound technician." Michael showed Raymond the documents he'd gathered. "Look at this timeline. The anonymous tip came in Sunday night, but the equipment wasn't found until Monday morning. How could anyone know it was in your house before it was even discovered?" Raymond studied the papers carefully. "I never noticed that detail before. And there's more. I just remembered that Richard always had the keys to all the employees' lockers at the studio. He said it was for security reasons." "That's true. He really did. So he had full access to your home through the keys you left in your work locker." Raymond grew thoughtful. "Not directly, but he knew where I lived because he had my address in the personnel files. And back then, I kept a spare key to my apartment in my work locker in case of emergencies." "Perfect. He had both opportunity and motive to plant the equipment in your home. But how can we prove it after all this time? Leave that to me. I have a plan." That night, Michael called Richard. "Richard, we need to talk in person. It's urgent." "What is it now, Michael? More paranoia about old cases?" "Actually, yes. I've uncovered some very serious things about you." There was silence on the other end of the line. "What kind of things?" "I think it's better we talk face to face. Can you come to my apartment tomorrow night?" Michael, you're worrying me. What are you talking about? See you tomorrow, Richard. The following night, Richard arrived at Michael's apartment visibly nervous. Michael had prepared the meeting carefully, including a hidden recorder. Richard, have a seat. I want to show you something. Michael spread the documents across the table. These are the files from the Raymond Wilson Taylor case. Do you remember him now? Richard glanced at the papers without touching them. I already told you I barely remember. Why are you so obsessed with this? Because I found out he was framed, and I have strong suspicions about who was responsible. Michael, you're delusional. The guy stole the equipment. End of story. Actually, no. Look at this timeline of events. Michael laid out all the inconsistencies he'd uncovered. With each detail, Richard grew more agitated. These are just coincidences. You're seeing a conspiracy where there isn't one. Richard, I know it was you. Richard stood abruptly. You've lost your mind, Michael. You were skimming money from contracts and Raymond found out. You set him up to get rid of the problem. Prove it. I can. And I'll do more than that. I'll make this whole case public. Richard paled. Michael, you don't know what you're doing. If you stir this up, you could ruin your own career. Why? Because you have dirt on me too. Let's just say some contracts you signed in the past weren't exactly transparent. If I want, I can make your life very difficult. Are you threatening me? I'm warning you. Drop this case and everyone wins. And if I don't? Richard stepped closer, his tone menacing. I'll destroy you, Michael, your career, your reputation, everything. You know how much influence I have in the music industry. Interesting. Very interesting. Richard realized he'd revealed too much. What's interesting? The fact that you're threatening me confirms you really have something to hide. Richard knew he'd walked into a trap. I didn't admit anything. Oh, you did. And our entire conversation was recorded. Richard looked around and spotted the small recorder on the shelf. You can't use that against me. Unauthorized recordings aren't admissible in court. Maybe not in court, but they'll matter in the court of public opinion when I release all this. Richard fell silent for a moment, weighing his options. What do you want, Michael? I want you to publicly confess that you framed Raymond, and I want you to compensate him for all the damages he suffered. And if I don't, I'll make everything I've found public. Your career will be over. So will yours. Mine is already ending for other reasons. I have nothing left to lose. Richard left the apartment without another word. Michael Bennett knew he had declared war on a powerful opponent, but he didn't care. The injustice committed against Raymond had deeply affected him. In the following days, Michael hired a lawyer and began preparing a formal lawsuit against Richard. He also sought out investigative journalists to expose the case in the media. Meanwhile, Raymond was going through moments of anguish. His conversation with Michael had reopened old wounds, and he couldn't stop thinking about the possibility of finally proving his innocence. Raymond, do you think this Michael is serious? Jennifer asked. I don't know, love. Part of me wants to believe it, but I'm afraid of getting my hopes up again. And if it's true, what if you can clear your name? It would be a dream. But even if they prove my innocence, it won't give me back the 10 years I lost. Tyler, who had been listening to his parents' conversation, stepped closer. Dad, even if it doesn't give back the lost time, at least people will know you're honest. Raymond hugged his son. You're right, my boy. Maybe this is the chance I've been waiting for. That Friday, Richard called Michael. Michael, let's talk. We can work something out. What kind of deal? I'll compensate Raymond discreetly, and you drop this whole thing. What about a public confession? That's not happening, but I can get him a good job at a record label here in New York City. It's not enough, Richard. That's my final offer. Take it, or I'll ruin your career. Do whatever you want. I won't back down. Over the weekend, Michael visited Raymond's family to update them on the latest developments. This time, Jennifer was more welcoming, especially after Emily had already explained who he really was. So, you're the famous Michael Bennett? She asked. Famous in decline, he replied with a sad smile. My career is practically over. Because of your voice problems, among other things. Tyler, who had been playing guitar in the courtyard of the boarding house, stopped and walked over. "You're really a singer?" "I am. Or was. Can you sing something?" Michael hesitated. His voice was still weak, but he didn't want to disappoint the boy. "I can try, but it won't sound great." He took Tyler's guitar and began playing Paper Dreams, the same song he had heard the boy singing on the subway. His voice was hoarse and missed some notes, but it still carried emotion. Tyler joined in singing, his clear voice perfectly complementing Michael's damaged one. Raymond and Jennifer were moved by the scene. "Wow, you two singing together was beautiful," Jennifer said. "Tyler has incredible talent," Michael said. "With a little guidance, he could go far." "Would you teach him a few things?" Raymond asked. "Of course, it would be my pleasure." At that moment, Michael realized he had found a new purpose. Even if his singing career was ending, he could use his experience to help young talents like Tyler. "Raymond, no matter what happens with Richard's case, I want to help Tyler develop his musical talent." "How so?" "I can get him music lessons, maybe even a scholarship at a specialized school." Tyler's eyes lit up. "Really? You'd do that?" "Absolutely. Talent like yours shouldn't go to waste." The following Monday, the situation took an unexpected turn. Richard showed up unannounced at Michael's apartment, accompanied by two men in suits. "Michael, these are my lawyers. We're here to make one last offer." "I'm not interested in offers, Richard. You'd better listen. If you go through with this, we'll file a defamation lawsuit against you. And we have evidence that you also benefited from some contractual irregularities in the past." One of the lawyers handed Michael an envelope. "Here are copies of the documents proving your involvement in fraudulent contracts. If you sue us, we'll sue you too." Michael opened the envelope and saw copies of old contracts with his signature. There really were some questionable clauses he had signed without reading carefully when he was still young and inexperienced. "That doesn't change the fact that you set Raymond up." "Maybe not," said Richard, "but it could destroy your credibility when you try to prove it." Michael realized he was in a tough spot. If he pursued the case, he'd be dragged down too, and his reputation would be even more tarnished. "What's your final offer?" "We'll pay Raymond $500,000 in compensation, plus a job at one of our partner record labels. In exchange, you sign a confidentiality agreement and never speak of this again." "And if I refuse?" "We sue you and make public all the shady contracts you signed. Your career will be over for good." Michael stayed silent for a few minutes, weighing his options. "I need to talk to Raymond before making any decision. You have until tomorrow to respond." After Richard and the lawyers left, Michael called Raymond, and they agreed to meet at a park near the boarding house. "Raymond, they made an offer. $500,000 in compensation and a job for you. What do you think?" "I think it's a substantial amount. Enough for you to start over." "But you don't seem thrilled about it." "It's just that they want me to sign a confidentiality agreement. It means the truth will never come out publicly." Raymond grew thoughtful. "For me, the most important thing is being able to work again in the field I love. If this offer gives me that chance, I'll take it. Even without a public confession." "Michael, I've already lost 10 years of my life. I can't waste more time chasing revenge that might never come." "I understand, but it bothers me knowing Richard will walk away unpunished. He might escape the law, but not his conscience, and you've done more for me than I ever imagined anyone would." That night, Michael made his decision. He called Richard and accepted the offer, but with one extra condition. "Richard, I'll take the deal, but on one condition. Besides the compensation and the job for Raymond, I want you to fund Tyler's music education." "What education?" "Private lessons in music, singing, and guitar, and when he's old enough, a scholarship to a music school." "How much will that cost?" "About $5,000 a month for the next 5 years." Richard hesitated. "That's a lot of money." "It's the price of your peace of mind. Take it or leave it." "Fine, but it has to be in the confidentiality agreement too." "Deal." A week later, they all met at Richard's lawyer's office to sign the papers. Raymond was nervous but hopeful. "Are you sure you're doing the right thing?" Jennifer asked her husband. "I am. It's a chance to start fresh." When all the documents were signed, Richard approached Raymond. "Raymond, I'm sorry for what happened." Raymond held Richard's gaze for a few seconds. "I forgive you, Richard, but I hope you learn from this." "I will." Michael watched the scene with a mix of satisfaction and sadness. Satisfaction for securing some justice for Raymond, and sadness knowing the full truth would never come out. Dear listener, if you're enjoying the story, don't forget to like and especially subscribe to the channel. It helps us a lot as we're just starting out. Now continuing. 2 weeks after signing the agreement, Raymond began his new job at a record label in Williamsburg. It was a smaller company than the studio where he had worked before, but the environment was welcoming, and he felt respected by his colleagues. "How was your first day?" Jennifer asked when he got home. "It was great. I felt useful again. And the best part is, no one looks at me with suspicion." Tyler, who was doing homework at a makeshift little table, looked up. "Dad, when do my music lessons start?" "Tomorrow, son. Michael has already arranged everything with the teacher." In truth, Michael had been very careful in choosing Tyler's instructor. He sought someone who understood not just musical technique, but also the boy's social background. The chosen teacher was Margaret Williams, a 62-year-old musician who had worked with several famous artists, but also had experience with social projects. "Tyler is a rare talent," Margaret told Michael after the first lesson. "He has a natural musicality that can't be taught, only refined." Can he go far? If he keeps dedicating himself the way he is, absolutely. But most importantly, he seems genuinely passionate about music. While Tyler developed his musical talent, Raymond was readjusting to the music world. He discovered that much had changed in the industry during the years he'd been away, but his experience and technical knowledge were still highly valued. "Raymond, you have a unique opportunity here," said Anthony, the record label owner. "With your experience, you could become our technical coordinator in no time." "Really?" "Of course. I'm impressed by your knowledge and dedication." For Raymond, hearing those words was like a balm for old wounds. He was finally being recognized for his professional worth. Michael, meanwhile, was going through a period of deep reflection about his career and life. His vocal issues persisted, but he had found a new way to fulfill himself professionally. "Emily, I'm thinking of starting a music school for underprivileged youth," he said during lunch one day. "Really? What an interesting idea." Meeting Tyler made me realize how many talents must be out there, lost for lack of opportunity. "Do you have the money to invest in this?" "I have some savings, and I can use my fame to secure sponsors and donations." "It's a beautiful project, Michael. And the best part is, I've finally found something that gives me more satisfaction than personal success." In the following months, Michael immersed himself in the music school project. He rented a space in a community on the north side of New York City and began structuring the program. Tyler was one of the first students to enroll, and his musical progress was impressive. Within months, he was already composing his own songs and performing at small community events. "Tyler, would you like to record a demo?" Michael suggested. "A demo?" "A professional recording of your songs to show your work to music producers." "Of course. That would be amazing." The demo was recorded at the studio where Raymond worked. It was an emotional moment for the whole family, Raymond operating the sound equipment while Tyler recorded his compositions. "Dad, does it sound good?" Tyler asked between songs. "It's perfect, son. Your voice is beautiful." For Raymond, that moment fulfilled a dream he hadn't even known he had. Seeing his son recording professionally in the studio where he worked felt like closing a cycle of hardship and opening a new one of achievements. Tyler's demo caught the attention of several people in the music industry. An independent producer took interest and offered him a deal to record an EP with 5 songs. "Tyler, this is a really great opportunity," Michael explained. "But you're still very young. We'd need to have a serious talk with your parents about how this would work." "What do you think, Dad?" asked Tyler to Raymond. "I think you have talent for this, son, but I want to make sure you won't neglect your studies. I never would, Dad. Music is important, but I want to finish school too. Jennifer, who had been the most skeptical about music at first, was now one of Tyler's biggest supporters. Tyler, if this is what makes you happy, you have our full support. Tyler's EP was recorded during school breaks, 5 original songs about dreams, perseverance, and family. The opening track was a reimagined version of Paper Dreams, which he had transformed into his own composition. When the EP was released on streaming platforms, the response was astonishing. Tyler's music resonated with people for its sincerity and emotional depth, especially coming from someone so young. Tyler, your song Hero Dad is going viral on social media, said Margaret, his teacher. Really? People are moved by the lyrics. Many are sharing stories about their own fathers. Hero Dad was a song Tyler had written about Raymond, a man who never gave up on his family, no matter how hard life got. When Raymond first heard it, he couldn't hold back tears. Son, I don't deserve this kind of tribute. Yes, you do, Dad. You've always been my hero, even in the toughest times. The EP's success opened new doors. Tyler was invited to perform on TV shows and indie music festivals. Tyler, are you ready for this kind of exposure? Asked Michael. I think so, but I want you all with me. Of course, your family will always be by your side. During one TV appearance, Tyler decided to share his family's story publicly. He spoke about their struggles, the injustice his father faced, and how music helped them through it all. My father has always been an honest man, Tyler told the host. He went through so much but never lost his dignity, and now he's back doing what he loves. Raymond, watching from outside the studio, was moved by his son's words. Jennifer, I can't believe our son is talking about us on TV. And with so much pride, he loves you deeply, Raymond. The TV appearance brought even more attention to Tyler's music. Several record labels showed interest, but Michael advised caution. Tyler, you're still young. There's no need to rush. What matters is keeping up with your studies and growing as an artist. But what if this opportunity doesn't come again? If you truly have talent, more opportunities will come. And if they don't, you create your own. Michael spoke from experience. His singing career had ended, but he found new fulfillment through his music school and mentoring young talents. Michael, don't you miss performing? Tyler asked during a lesson. I do, but I found something even more rewarding, helping other artists achieve their dreams. How so? When I sang, I only fulfilled my own dream. Now, through the school and helping people like you, I get to fulfill dozens of young dreams. Tyler thought about those words. I see. It's like your music multiplies through others. Exactly. 2 years after that first meeting on the subway, the Wilson-Taylor family's life had completely changed. Raymond was established in his new career, earning well and respected by his colleagues. Jennifer had gone back to school and was taking a business administration course. Tyler continued to develop his musical talent while maintaining good grades in school. Michael's music school was thriving. Dozens of young people from the community received free lessons, and some were already beginning to stand out in the independent music scene. Michael, you've changed so many lives, said Margaret during a school meeting. Actually, it was those lives that changed me, especially Tyler's family. During a special school performance, Tyler decided to plan a surprise. He invited Raymond to join him on stage and play together. Everyone, I'd like to introduce you to my dad. He's the one who taught me that music is more than just sound. It's love, it's family, it's overcoming challenges. Raymond stepped onto the stage nervously, but when he picked up the guitar and began playing alongside his son, all his shyness vanished. The audience was moved seeing father and son perform together, knowing the struggles they had overcome. At the end of the performance, Michael also took the stage. Folks, I met this family during a very tough time. Tyler was playing in the subway to help at home, and Raymond was unemployed due to an injustice. Now, look how far they've come. The audience erupted in applause. But the truth is, they taught me more than I ever taught them. They showed me that real music isn't about success or fame. It's about touching people's hearts and transforming lives. Tyler walked up to Michael. Michael, you're the one who changed our lives. Not just with financial help, but most of all by believing in us when no one else did. Tyler, you're the ones who saved me. When I found you in the subway, I was lost, unsure where my life was headed. You showed me a new path. Raymond also stepped forward. Michael, I'll never forget what you did for our family. You gave me back my dignity and gave my son a future. Raymond, you always had dignity. I just helped others see it. At that moment, the three embraced on stage, representing a family formed not by blood, but by music and solidarity. The audience rose in a heartfelt ovation. Among those watching were Jennifer, Margaret, Emily, and many young people from the community who had also been impacted by the school's program. Now, we'd like to play a special song, said Tyler. It's a song my dad taught me, one that changed everything in our lives. They began playing Paper Dreams, the same song that had connected their lives on that cold day in the subway. But now, the song held a completely different meaning. It was no longer about lost dreams, but about dreams fulfilled and multiplied. Michael sang a few verses with his still rough but deeply emotional voice. Tyler harmonized with his crystal-clear tone. Raymond accompanied them on guitar with the mastery of someone who had dedicated his whole life to music. When the song ended, there was a moment of total silence before the applause exploded. Many in the audience were in tears, moved by the beauty of the moment and the strength of the story they represented. After the performance, the three families gathered for dinner at a simple local pizzeria, a tradition they had developed over their 2 years together. Tyler, have you decided what you want to do after high school? Asked Emily. I definitely want to study music, but I also want to learn about music production and artist management. Why? Because one day, I want to start my own record label, one that truly cares about the artists, not just the profits. Raymond smiled proudly. This boy dreams big. He got that from his father, said Michael. I always knew you had bigger ambitions than just running sound equipment. It's true, I always dreamed of being a music producer, but I never got the chance. Why not take the opportunity now? You could study music production while working at the record label. Raymond grew thoughtful. Isn't it too late? Raymond, you're 45, said Jennifer. It's never too late to chase your dreams. Your wife is right, agreed Margaret. And you have an advantage. You have hands-on experience most music production students don't. In the months that followed, Raymond did enroll in a music production course. Balancing work, studies, and family was challenging, but he was determined to make the most of this second chance life had given him. Tyler continued to grow musically and started helping Michael with classes at the school. He discovered he had a talent for teaching and enjoyed passing on his knowledge. Tyler, you have a gift for teaching, Margaret observed. You think so? I'm sure of it. I've seen you with the younger students. You have natural patience and a way of explaining things. Maybe I can be both an artist and a teacher. Of course you can. Look at Michael. He's happier as a music educator than he ever was as a famous singer. Michael had truly found his calling. The school was growing, and he was planning to open a second location in another underserved community. Emily, I want to document this whole process, he said. I think our story could inspire others. What kind of documentary do you have in mind? Something that shows how music can change lives. Not just my family's story with Raymond and Tyler, but all the families who've come through the school. That's a beautiful idea. I can help with production. The documentary began filming on the 3rd anniversary of Michael and Tyler's meeting in the subway. They returned to where it all started to shoot some scenes. Tyler, do you remember what you were thinking that day when Michael approached you? Asked Emily, who was directing the documentary. I do. I was afraid he might be a stranger with bad intentions. I never imagined he'd change our lives forever. And you, Michael? What went through your mind when you heard Tyler singing? First, I was amazed by his talent. Then, when he told me about his father, I felt a moral responsibility to help. Why? Because I realized how many injustices happen in the music industry, and sometimes we turn a blind eye. I didn't want to be complicit anymore. Raymond, who was also part of the filming, added, For me, the most important thing wasn't the settlement or the new job. It was getting my dignity back, being able to look at my son with pride again. During filming, they learned that Richard had left the music business shortly after the settlement. Rumor had it he'd gotten involved in other shady schemes and lost all his clients. "Funny how life works," Raymond remarked. "He tried to destroy me and ended up destroying himself." "I don't take joy in anyone's downfall," Michael said. "But I'm glad he can't hurt anyone else." The documentary was completed after 6 months of production. Emily arranged for it to be shown at a few film festivals and even in a special screening on a TV network. The response was overwhelmingly positive. Many people connected with the story, and families began enrolling their children in the music school. "Michael, the documentary is inspiring people across the country," Emily told him. "I've heard from music educators who want to replicate your project in other cities." "That's wonderful. That was always the goal." "Have you thought about franchising the school?" "I have, but I want to do it responsibly, ensuring the quality of teaching is maintained across all locations." Tyler, now 15, continued to stand out in the independent music scene. He had released 2 more EPs and was being approached by major record labels. "Tyler, a multinational label has made a very good offer for you," Michael said. "What kind of offer?" "A 5-year contract with them. Great financial benefits, production of a full album, a national tour. What do you think?" "I think you should analyze it carefully before deciding. Remember our talk about rushing into things?" "I do, but this time is different. I feel more prepared." Raymond and Jennifer were also divided about the offer. "Son, it's a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity," Jennifer said. "But it's also a huge responsibility," Raymond added. "You'll have to put many things aside." "Like what?" "School, friends, family. A professional artist's life is very hectic." Tyler grew thoughtful. "What if I negotiate a contract that lets me keep studying?" "It's possible," Michael said. "But you need to be sure this is what you want for your life." "How can I be sure?" "Ask yourself one question. Would you still make music even if you didn't earn money from it?" Tyler answered without hesitation. "I would." "Then you have your answer." The contract negotiations took 2 months. Michael, who had become something of a mentor to Tyler, accompanied him to every meeting to ensure the young man's interests were protected. "Tyler, we've included a clause guaranteeing you can continue your studies," said the family's hired lawyer. "What about performances at Michael's school?" "That's secured too. You can keep participating in the social projects." "Perfect." Tyler's first professional album was released when he turned 16. Titled Paper Dreams, it paid tribute to the song that had changed his life and featured 12 original tracks. The album launch was a special event at Michael's music school. The whole community was there, along with journalists and music industry figures. "Everyone, this album isn't just mine," Tyler said during the event. "It belongs to all of you who believed in me and helped me get here." He called Raymond, Jennifer, Michael, and Margaret to join him on stage. "Without these people, I'd still be playing in the subway. Not that there's anything wrong with that, but now I have the chance to share my music with so many more." The album was a hit on digital platforms, and Tyler began touring cities across the United States. At every show, he shared his family's story and dedicated at least one song to his father. "Tyler is becoming a complete artist," Margaret observed, "not just technically but emotionally. He understands music's power to transform lives." Raymond, who had graduated in music production, was invited to work on Tyler's next project. "Son, are you sure you want to work with me?" "Absolutely, Dad. Who better to produce my music? You've known me since the day I was born." Working together in the studio was a unique experience for father and son. Raymond applied all his technical knowledge and musical sensitivity to highlight Tyler's talent. "Raymond, you have an exceptional ear," the studio's sound engineer praised. "Tyler's singing better than ever." "It's because he's singing with a peaceful heart," Raymond replied. "When you feel loved and supported, your art flows naturally." Tyler's second album, produced by his father, was even better received than the first. Their partnership became one of the most talked about in the US independent music scene. Michael, seeing the success of the father-son duo, felt a fulfillment he had never experienced during his fame. "Emily, do you think I made the right choice when I left my career to focus on music education?" "Michael, Just look at what you've built. A school that has trained hundreds of young people, a family you helped reunite, a talent like Tyler that you helped shape. Do you think your solo career would have had this kind of impact? When you put it that way, it's clear it was the best decision of my life. And that's not all. You've inspired other artists to use their fame for social causes. Your example is multiplying. Indeed, several famous artists had sought Michael out to develop similar social projects. The school was becoming a national reference for music education in underserved communities. On the 5th anniversary of their meeting in the subway, the school organized a festival featuring performances by all the students. Tyler was the headliner, but insisted on sharing the stage with other young talents discovered by Michael. "Everyone, 5 years ago I was just a kid playing in the subway," Tyler told the packed audience. "Today, I'm a professional artist, but more importantly, I know I can use my music to change other lives, just like mine was changed." He looked at Michael, who stood at the side of the stage. "Michael, you taught me that true success isn't about how many people know your name, but how many lives you can touch with your art." Raymond, who was running sound for the event, was moved by his son's words. Jennifer, in the audience, cried with pride. "And Dad," Tyler continued, "you taught me that honesty and dignity matter more than any professional success. Thank you for never giving up on our family." The audience rose in a standing ovation that lasted several minutes. It was recognition not just of Tyler's talent, but of the entire journey of resilience their family had endured. After the festival, everyone gathered for a celebration at the school. It was a moment of joy, but also reflection on all they had achieved together. "Tyler, what's your next dream?" Margaret asked. "I want to build my own music school, not to compete with Michael's, but to expand this work." "And where are you thinking of doing that?" "In the outskirts of New Orleans. It's a city with so much untapped musical talent." Michael was moved hearing Tyler's plans. "Tyler, this is exactly what I hoped would happen, that you'd multiply this work. That's what you taught me, to receive and multiply." Raymond was also planning new projects. "Jennifer, I'm thinking of opening a recording studio for independent artists." "Really?" "Yes. A place where young talents can record their work with professional quality without selling their souls to big labels." "And how would you fund it?" "I have some savings from the settlement, and I can find partners who believe in the project." Jennifer, who had a degree in business, offered to help manage the future studio. "Raymond, I can handle the administrative side. It'd be my way of contributing to the family's dream." "Of course, love, that'd be perfect." In the following months, Tyler and Raymond's projects began taking shape. Tyler secured funding for the New Orleans school through his record label and business people who believed in the vision. Raymond found partners for the independent studio and started structuring the business. Michael felt proud seeing his influence multiply through the people he'd helped. "Emily, I'm thinking of writing a book about this whole experience." "What kind of book?" "A story about how music can be a tool for social transformation, not just our story, but of all the families impacted by the project." "It's a wonderful idea, and it can inspire even more people." The book was written over the course of a year. Michael interviewed dozens of families who had been part of the school and collected moving stories of overcoming struggles through music. "Michael, have you noticed how your life completely changed direction?" Tyler asked during one of the interviews for the book. "I have, and it was the best change that ever happened to me." "How would you explain that?" "I learned there are different kinds of success. The success I had before was individual and empty. The success I have now is collective and full of meaning." "And you don't miss the fame?" "Sometimes I miss being on stage, but I don't miss the fame. Fame is very superficial. What I do now has so much more substance." The book launch took place 2 years after the 5-year festival. The event was held at one of the largest bookstores in New York City and was attended by Tyler, Raymond, Jennifer, Margaret, Emily, and dozens of former students from the school. "This book is a gift to everyone who believes in the transformative power of music," Michael said during the launch. Tyler gave a special performance at the event, singing some of the songs that marked his journey. Raymond accompanied him on guitar, showcasing the musical partnership they had developed. "Everyone, this book tells our story, But more importantly, it shows that anyone can be an agent of social change, Tyler told the audience. A young woman in the crowd raised her hand. Tyler, what advice would you give to someone who wants to use their art to transform lives? First, believe in your purpose. Second, don't rush. Real transformation takes time. And third, always remember that what you receive, you must multiply. Raymond was also asked about his experience. Mr. Wilson Taylor, how did you handle the difficult period you went through? With a lot of family support and faith. And most importantly, I never let bitterness take over my heart. Holding on to resentment only hurts yourself. Did you forgive those who wronged you? I did. Not for them, but for me. Forgiveness sets the one who forgives free. Jennifer also participated in the Q&A. Mrs. Jennifer, what was it like seeing your family rebuild itself? It was like being born again. Seeing my husband regain his self-esteem and my son fulfilling his dreams is the greatest joy a mother could have. At the end of the event, everyone gathered on the bookstore's small stage for a group photo. It was an image that symbolized not just a reunited family, but an entire community formed around love for music and solidarity. Michael, what's your biggest dream now? A journalist asked. My biggest dream is to see our music schools spread across the entire United States, and more than that, to see other artists using their influence for social causes. And what about you, Tyler and Raymond? What are your dreams? Tyler answered first. My dream is to keep making music that touches people's hearts while expanding the social work I learned from Michael. Raymond added, my dream is to see my son always stay true to the values we tried to teach him, and to keep helping other young people have the same opportunities he had. 7 years after their first meeting on the subway, life had taken turns none of them could have imagined. Tyler had become a nationally respected artist, but never lost his humility or social commitment. Raymond now owned the most sought-after independent studio for up-and-coming artists in New York City. Jennifer had become a partner in the business and was recognized as one of the best managers in the music industry. Michael had expanded his network of schools to 12 cities across the United States, and his book had become a reference in social music education. His voice had partially recovered, but he discovered he no longer needed to sing to make music. He made music through every life he transformed. Emily, do you think our story is extraordinary? Michael asked during a celebratory lunch. I think you turned what could have been just another overlooked injustice into something extraordinary. How so? How many Raymond Wilsons are out there, suffering injustices in silence? How many Tylers are playing in subway stations with no one caring? You turned statistics into humanity. Margaret, who now coordinated the educational programs for all the schools, added, and most importantly, you proved that music truly is a universal language of love and solidarity. That night, Tyler posted a photo on social media of him and his father playing together, accompanied by a caption that summarized their entire journey. 7 years ago, I was just a boy playing in the subway to help my family. Today, I'm a professional artist, but more importantly, I'm the son of a man who taught me that dignity isn't negotiable, and I'm the student of someone who showed me that true success is being able to help others achieve their dreams. Music isn't just sound, it's love in motion. The post went viral, receiving thousands of comments from people inspired by the family's story. Many shared their own stories of overcoming hardships, while others offered to support new social projects. Tyler, do you realize the impact your story has on people? His publicist remarked. I do, and it makes me very happy, but it also gives me a huge responsibility. What responsibility? The responsibility to always stay true to the message I share, to never let success go to my head. Raymond, who was listening, smiled proudly. Son, if you keep thinking like that, you can be sure you'll always stay on the right path. The 9th anniversary of their subway meeting was celebrated with a grand festival in New York City, bringing together artists who had passed through Michael's schools and famous musicians who supported the cause. Tyler was the headliner, but insisted on sharing the stage with young talents just starting their careers, continuing the cycle of solidarity that had defined his own journey. Everyone, Tonight, we're not just celebrating 9 years of friendship, Tyler told the crowd of 15,000. We're celebrating 9 years of proof that music can change the world, one life at a time. He called Michael to the stage. Michael, without you, I'd just be another lost dream in the crowd. With you, I became a dream multiplier. Michael, now with a few streaks of grey in his hair, stepped onto the stage, moved. Tyler, you taught me that I didn't need a perfect voice to make perfect music. All I needed was a heart willing to love. The two embraced as the audience erupted in applause. Raymond, operating the sound for the event, smiled with satisfaction, watching the musical partnership he had helped build. At the end of the show, all the artists returned to the stage to sing Paper Dreams Tie together, a choral version of the song that had started it all, now performed by hundreds of voices representing hundreds of transformed lives. As the final notes faded, there was a brief moment of silence before the ovation thundered through the crowd. 15,000 people stood, applauding not just a performance, but a testament that love and solidarity can create everyday miracles. The end. Now, tell us what you thought of this story and where you're watching from. If you have something to share with us, leave your sincere thoughts in the comments. Do you believe Michael made the right decision by leaving his career for social work? We'd love to hear your opinion. Thank you so much for joining us. Don't forget to like the video and, most importantly, subscribe to the channel so you don't miss other heartwarming stories.